So today's video is inspired by one of my pupils who went from hitting 7-iron 87 yards through the air to a 120-yard carry with one simple change, and 2 days later shot his best ever gross score of 86. Now, I know what you're thinking, I could do with a bit of that. So, the big change we made, and a lot of golfers don't always appreciate this, is when we want to hit the golf ball further, especially with irons, it's definitely one of those things that club head speed's important. And obviously if you can generate a little bit more club head speed, the ball will go further. But it's also about presenting the correct amount of loft at impact to get the club head speed into the golf ball and create ball speed and therefore distance. So my pupil that I'm talking about today, when he first came to me, kind of big slicey one, so a very open club face and kind of very out to in with the movement. And we've improved his direction massively, but the distance was an issue. But he was still tending to kind of hit shots very like this. So decent accuracy, but launching very high. I mean, that particular one there for me, launching at 24 degrees and only carrying 130 degrees. Now his poor shot before, you might have noticed, launched at nearly 27 degrees, and his good one was more around 19. So I said to him, look, the reason that you're creating the distance that you are is at address, you've got pretty much the loft of your club, which, let's say for argument's sake with him was 32 degrees. But at impact, you're turning that still nearly into that amount of loft. I said, whereas the best players in the world obviously get the club leaning forward and de-loft the club. So set him a simple little task. I want you to hit some shots, just little half swings, but I want you to feel like you get as little loft as possible on the golf ball. And initially I said, look, I want you to just have a go and try and do what you want, but swing back to waist height and go from there. And his first kind of couple, he'd kind of swing and kind of really make a poor contact on the golf ball and kind of hit the ground first. He topped a couple. So I said to him, and this is great if you're working through the video with me, I said, show me where you are at address and show me what we're talking about. He said, well, we're talking about trying to be more this way, aren't we? And as he did it, he instantly moved his weight more onto his left side. And we said, look, in your full swing, you set up, you transfer your weight, and you get across okay, but you're there at impact. So I said, hitting the little shot, what might you feel that you need to do? And he said, well, if the swing's only short, I'd actually feel like I maybe have to set a bit more weight there and keep it there. So we said, fine, do that. And his first swing, he kind of stood up, had a little bit more pressure left, and kind of launched the ball much, much lower. So we see there, for me, just under 12.5 degrees. But interestingly there, the carry at 127 is nearly the same as the full swing. But it suddenly launched half that distance. So we had him hit a few where he felt that the weight stayed left, and he obviously still moved that way. So then as we progressed into the full swing, he said, obviously I can't keep my weight there, and we didn't want him to. But it very, very quickly worked out that if he said he felt he moved his weight like he normally would, to get back to where he now wanted to be, he said he felt there was a long way to move in a very short space of time. I'm being honest, I didn't disagree with him. So he said, what if I would stay a little bit more centered on the way back, which would then help me get across and keep the loft off? And as in any session, I went, theory, that sounds fantastic, let's hit it and see. So he set himself up, did the little rehearsal first, felt very centered, shifted onto that left side. And then when he hit the shot, very, very different. We actually saw a little pickup in speed, as I've seen there. The ball launched lower, and all of a sudden the first carry was over 20 yards longer. And like we see with me there, 153. And he said, I think his initial launch was around 20. He went, wow, so I've gone from kind of 27 degrees to 20 and picked up 20 yards. Now we saw at the start his best one was actually over 30 yards difference. And he went, but that doesn't even feel like I'm kind of hitting a full shot. So we said, right, do a few. So again, he set up, feel centered, and then move left. And even though he didn't feel he was putting a lot into the swing, we saw the club head speed just inch up a bit, that launch angle go down a tiny bit, and the distance just gradually increasing. So obviously we did this over an hour, and we did work through different clubs as well, and it worked with every single club. Driver, we didn't do it because we wanted something different with driver. But it was mind-blowing. And he said straight away, the difference that can make between maybe hitting 7-iron or 9-iron into the green should help him get nearer the hole. And obviously the score a couple of days later backed that up. But as we worked through it, he then went, right, could I then feel that I put my normal amount of effort, which I don't like, but normal speed into the golf swing and still get that feeling? So we said, absolutely, get set up, feel like you swing at normal speed. And as I've seen there, the speed then jumps up again. He retained that much lower launch angle. And again, we started seeing a little bit more distance. But it was really interesting because as distance was going up, he did pick up more club head speed. And that was just simply because as he was able to get onto that left side quicker, his body could then twist into the ground a little bit better for him, how he generates his speed. And this moved faster, but the most important thing is that club started coming back de-lofted, striking the middle of the club face and getting lots of ball speed and distance. But it also gave him lots and lots of control on direction. And I always say to golfers, yes, you want more distance. Can't necessarily give it up if you hit it all over the place, but if you can stand there and feel, like my client did, that he can stand there and just actually feel like he doesn't move his weight as much. He was able to set up, make that swing, and the sound off the club was completely different. And even one like that, where it launches a little bit higher, suddenly went a long, long way. And his feedback, honestly, to shoot mid-80s was mind-blowing, and it's really made him assess. He's always said he wanted to get to 18 handicap, which I'm sure a lot of you guys watching might be the same. But he said having gone out and shot 86, didn't even feel his short game was great, but the ability to get driver in play, hit the ball further down the hole, on the holes he couldn't reach, so he was by the green rather than having 50, 60 yards in, is an absolute game changer. So remember, the best players in the world deliver lots less loft at impact than there is at address. And that's what we got my client doing, and most of you watching will benefit massively from that. So if you need to, you start off by hitting some little shots, keeping the loft off the club, and as you feel comfortable with that, you build up into that longer swing. And if you can present less loft, you're going to get more ball speed, maybe even a little more club head speed, but hit the ball further and straighter than ever before.